All right, what's up everyone? I know it's a little bit early. I'm just getting things set up. So I'm getting the heat map up on the screen for you. Got it set up for the 1 hour interval. I'm just gonna have this up and we are then going to go to some Federal Reserve here. Said a few minutes early. So let me know what you guys think of the sound real quick. I'll have the video up here in a second. I just want to get some sound going, get you guys some background. But at 2:30 p.m. is when JP himself is going to be firing up the announcements. All right. So just let me know the sound check for you guys, everyone. Just checking up on the sound. They're going to go live at 2:30. So up until then, if you guys got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. But let me know, is this a good enough mic audio for you guys? This is going to be easier hands-free for me. So let me know. All right, cool. So we got Crypto Ninja chiming in, Ryan G chiming in too with the sound. I just got audio is good. I'm just gonna have just audio up just for now here real quick. I'm reading your comments. I got my other screen off to the side. Let's see here. I've got the heat map up right now. We've got it on the 1 hour. Switch it out to the 1 day, 24-hour period. Let's take a look at the heat map real quick. So over the last 24 hours, you could see markets have moved real heavy on the positive side, especially Ethereum up 11%, Bitcoin up 5% in the last 24 hours. So markets right now are basically saying, hey, 75, we priced that in. You know, if you come at us with 100, I think you'll see a massive sell-off. But right now it looks like 75 is priced in. And as soon as the Fed goes live, we will bring it to you with live reaction. And we got hello from a few of you guys out there. We got Bradley Boyle saying hello. Crypto Ninja saying hello from the UK. Ryan G, Code 9 saying the audio is good. What's up, everyone? How are you doing right now? Like I said, it got some heat map up right now. We're waiting for the Feds to go live. They're going to go live at about 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we got about 16 minutes until they go live. So if you got any questions, comments, anything like that, let me know. Good time to answer them. So like I said, we're just going to wait for the Fed right now. I'm going to have the heat map up. Right now, heat map is at 24-hour time period. You could see big moves for Ethereum, Bitcoin, BNB even. Look at that, 8.27%. So some big moves here in the recent time leading up to the Fed. And we always say what, everyone? They say they are making the moves days early, and days earlier was the sell-off, and now we're seeing the rebound. So from the market standpoint, it looks like market right now is pricing in the action that 75 has hit. So like I said, 100 will shake it down even worse, but right now we look pretty soft at 75. And again, if you guys, gals, got questions, hit me up now. We're just waiting for JP to go live. That'll be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got Bradley Boyles chiming in from the Philippines. Let's see. Crypto Ninja says, what do you think of the recent ruling with John Deaton? Well, it's good because remember, Deaton represents a whole bunch of XRP holders. These holders are sitting there going, hey, look, you know, government, you're messing with our holding. So allowing him to be involved, it's just good for the basis of knowledge spread and collaboration. Open collaboration, let's be honest. I think all these guys collaborate in the background. But being able to openly collaborate information back and forth, having another legal team with the vested interest of a bunch of XRP holders, that's only good news. And it's also another another reason why the SEC has been taking the punches here lately is because, you've got the Hinman stuff that was, taken down saying, hey, look, no, you got to produce this stuff. Attorney-client privilege does not exist right here. And the SEC is still yet to give that information up. But now you've got the ruling here where they're going, hey, we're going to allow Deaton and his crew to hang out with you guys, share information, collaborate. I think that's a good move here. Like I said, we're just waiting for Jerome Powell. They will start at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Got the heat map up on the screen showing you guys right now the 24-hour move for your most favorite cryptos out there. And if you got a question, now is the time to ask it, because we got 14 minutes until JP goes live. So ask those questions now and I will get to them. All right, so looking at the questions right now, I've got Sean Campbell chiming in. Do you think other utility tokens will face the same scrutiny as Ripple, or this case is more established in New Howie? So, all right, here's the thing. This will definitely set precedent, or whatever case ends up being finished first. And why I say that is because the SEC went after 9 other tokens out there as security. So it's not just XRP. XRP has been the one fighting in the trenches the longest. So, when I think other utility tokens will face the same scrutiny, I think it's a matter of who's playing nice in the sandbox. The SEC has been publicly out there saying, hey, listen, if you come to us, we will walk you through regulation. All right, they're saying proactive. And you know what it reminds me of, you guys, and you can laugh at me, all right? And Ben, I see your comment, man. But I want you guys to think about this. In the United States with baseball, do you guys remember the whole steroid hearings thing? So what happened there was guys were asked to testify at Congress, and the ones that testified, even if they said, hey, I'm not here to talk about the present or the past, I'm only here to talk about the present, those people, like, Congress left them all alone. Everyone left Clemens alone and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So what happened was people that came to Congress and said, hey, yeah, maybe, okay, I was involved in the past, let's talk about now. Those people were given a total pass by Congress going forward, where there were a bunch of other athletes and public figures that Congress went after that didn't agree to it. So I think the same thing applies here. I think that you're going to have companies out there that are working with the SEC. They're probably not talking about it because, who knows, what the hell kind of information privacy rules they got, obviously NDAs and all that. But the idea is I think there's companies out there that are working for them. But remember, it's not just Ripple that the SEC is going after. There's 9 other crypto companies. So Ben R chimes in, hey, Klaus, is there any dates coming soon that could be negative? Yeah, tomorrow, the negative GDP could be big, Ben. In the United States, this would be the second quarter in a row of negative growth. If that's what happens, that officially triggers, or early officially triggers, the recession, which would send a lot of people out there whose heads are in the sand. Hey, there are problems. No, they would have to pull their heads out of their sand. So a lot of loyalists, a lot of economic loyalists are going to really have to face the music here and start preaching it on mass media. They're going to have to stop saying, hey, the economy is good. They're going to have to start really talking about this, especially when it's going to be made public like this. So, and again, we've got a few minutes till JP and the Fed comes in. It is 2:19 right now. You got 11 minutes for your questions. Heat map up on the screen right now. Right now, 24-hour period, we're looking at Bitcoin up 5%, Ethereum up 11.6% in the last 24 hours, up to 1543. Still a far cry from the 4,000. BNB up big, 8.6%. So we're seeing the market right now in the last 24 hours having priced in at 75, saying, hey, if it's 100, you're going to see a sell-off. And if it's a 50, I think you'll see a massive rally. Don't think a 50 is going to happen. I think we're going to see the 75. I think the big rough news is going to come tomorrow with the second quarter GDP report. So Ben, again, that's what we're talking about right here. That is the next big date that you'd have to worry about, because if we have a second negative GDP date, you will then see a bigger, broader reaction than just the United States. You'll see a lot of other lending other institutions, other countries out there get affected by that. And just a heads up for everyone, when JP does go live, I'm going to do a real quick sound check because their audio is sometimes a little weak on the Fed side. So what I can do is we'll do a quick audio check when they fire it up. I've got it right now tuned up to max, so just let me know if that's what you guys can tolerate. Otherwise, yeah, when they go live, we'll go live with the Fed. You guys have got about 9 minutes to get your questions in. One of the other things I was considering doing too, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. No, I'm not going to be doing that. Is Stellar Development Foundation did a second quarter in review, and I watched it live. And it's got some really, really interesting stats right now. And what's up, Kevin? How's it going? It does have some really interesting stats. And if you guys want to do a stellar review, just depends on the support of the viewer. I could do one live on the stream. I could go over all their big numbers, their big highlights. I could really condense it down. We could go over things that concern me. But again, just depends on the support from you guys. The main thing that we are here right now to talk about, though, is Federal Reserve. We're waiting for them to go live. You guys got 8 minutes. Ask your questions. Say hello. What's the gas price from where you're at? We're just waiting for Jerome Powell and the Fed to go live. So we're going to put the heat map back up on the screen. Ask your questions. All right, and if you're following along on the chat, Ryan G brought up the MLB analogy is spot on. Let me take a quick drink of water here, and we'll fill you guys in if you missed it what the MLB analogy is. And we got Kyle chiming in, Michigan 430. By the way, Georgia, South Carolina, we are looking right at 379 out here. Still way higher than what it used to be. It used to be under $2 not so long ago. So yeah, we're really feeling the pinch out here. Oh, Ben is rocking it. Ben's probably going to beat us all, everyone, gas price wise. I think Ben comes out to real close to like $9-10 a gallon where he is. Thanks, Ben, for chiming in with that. Appreciate it. All right, so the MLB analogy. So someone asked, if other tokens, coins are going to be under the same scrutiny as, XRP, right? Is the SEC going to investigate them? And my thoughts were, and plenty of times we've seen this, where there's been other industries that have been asked to testify in front of Congress. All the ones that have chosen to participate, they sat in the hot seat, all right? They did. They sat in the hot seat and took it. MLB, right, with the steroid hearings, watched that one. I mean, you guys that was a harsh one. They grilled those people on national TV, ran their, through the mud. But all those people, they got away with it, right? And the people, though, that didn't show up, the people that evaded them, Congress went after them, and they made it public. The teams, the leagues went after them. So it's Congress definitely acts in a way of, hey, we want you to come to us, right, on good faith and start working with us on regulation. So what's impacting there is broader market-wise is the SEC just recently went after 9 more companies, all right? Went after 9 more companies and saying, hey, these companies are securities. And we got 6 minutes till JP comes on. So yeah, SEC comes out, 9 more companies they're going after. The thing is, you have to play with the feds, all right? You have to play with the government. I worked for a company where we did this with the Colgate law. And it had to do with what we could do for customers, right? Like how we could entice customers with dinners or, gifts, food, gift cards, lunch and learn, stuff like that. Well, the company I worked for, we participated that voluntarily on the government. The government put the probe out saying, hey, all you in the industry out there, we're going to go through all you, but we're going to give you all just the chance first. Whoever wants to come out, we'll work with you first. So we did, and they told us exactly what was right, what was wrong. We didn't get in trouble for it because we worked with the government, but we did. We saw the regulation firsthand, and some of the stuff we didn't even know was against the rules because the laws do change with that all the time. So I saw it firsthand working with the government. They will be rough with you. but if you work with them, it's great. Same thing with OSHA, right? Those OSHA inspections. I've dealt with plenty of those out there in my own previous life. And I can tell you that with OSHA too, if you make a mistake, all you have to do is say, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Like that's on me. But you start making excuses, or, you don't go to them. I know we got a new piece of machinery in, and it was a robotics, like a hybrid human robotic interface machine. And we asked OSHA, hey, what are the regulations? Because it really wasn't clear at that point, technology wise, what the rules were, especially for boundary space, clothing and stuff like that, because it was kind of a robotic machine, but it was human interface. Well, anyways, long story short, we asked them, and while they were there, they saw another violation that we had. It was a small minor one. And they said, hey, look, we're just going to tell you, when we come back to check on this, please just have that done. And they were real nice about it. So I think if you work with the government will work with you. Right now, we are just hanging out. 226, we are waiting for Jerome Powell and the Fed to go up. I got a couple different feeds here depending on the sound. So like I said, when they start going live, I'll start firing up the sound for them. Everyone right now, chime in. Where are you located? How much are you paying for gas? And hello back from me to you. Just to let everyone know who's watching right now. South Carolina, Georgia. I was just in North Carolina here recently too. I could say gas everywhere in that area is $3.79 to $4.09, somewhere around that price. All right. Ryan G chiming in with another good question. Ryan, thanks for the good questions. Appreciate it. Ryan says, is there an end in sight to the Ripple case, or is it going to drag on for a bit longer? They are going to drag and drag and drag that thing. Even when they lose the things like with the Hinman speech, they still haven't divulged all of that. All right, they have not divulged that with the Hinman speech. So they lose, right, the rulings against, the judges against them, and yet they still don't provide that information. They file appeal after appeal after appeal, and it's crazy. So no, that people optimistically are saying, hey, you could get an end at the end of 2022. I find that very hard to believe. We're looking more 2023. That's where most of the money right now is betting, is that 2023 would be the time for that case to be over with. All right, and we got more people chiming in with the gas prices, and Bo Rabbit chiming in. Bo Rabbit, by the way, everyone, chimed in on this like 20, 30 minutes before the stream even started. I saw your comment out there, Bo. Chimed in super early before the live stream. Huge support of the channel, so thank you, Bo, for hanging out with us. Ryan G chiming in. Diesel is $5.49 here in Eagan, Minnesota. Where is Eagan? Is that like upper Minnesota area? Only reason I ask is I did a lot of fishing out there, Leech Lake, Lake of the Woods, Rainy River, stuff like that. And yeah, no problem, Ryan. Appreciate it, man. B-Half, hello from North Carolina. I spend plenty of time in North Carolina. A lot of boating stuff in North Carolina. I really like the area. Jim Bergen, 415 Central Florida. Are you a Rays fan, Jim Bergen? Are you disappointed with the Rays? Have you been pissed with Rays baseball? I don't know. I got to say, honestly, it's just been a race out in the East, and the rest of the divisions don't mind. It just seems the Yankees are going to run away with it. 10 minutes from Minneapolis. Okay, Ryan. Yeah, I've been to Minneapolis plenty of times. I used to live near that area, a few hours away from that area, and actually went to Target Field to see the Sox play and loved it. It was when Target Field was new. All right, so here we go. We got JP coming live here. Got some sound. Once they start talking, get a sound feed, everyone, I will then shut my sound down, and we'll see how the feed is here. All right. Give me a second. Oh, Jim Bergen, not a baseball fan. No, it's cool, Jim. And as soon as they go live, I'm going to kill my mic sound, and then just let me know on the feed sound what you guys think. I'll try. I have it cranked up as high as I can go. We'll just see how loud their actual output sound is. Uh-oh, here we go. JP live. Let me know the sound on their feed, guys, as soon as it starts firing up for you.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I are strongly committed to bringing inflation back down. and we're moving expeditiously to do so. We have both the tools we need and the resolve it will take to restore price stability on behalf of American families and businesses. The economy and the country.
All right, quickly, everyone, put it down below, 75 or 100. That's what we're asking, 75 or 100. Say it before he says it.
Bring inflation down to our 2% goal if we are to have a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. From the standpoint of our congressional mandate to promote maximum employment and price stability, the current picture is plain to see. The labor market is extremely tight, and inflation is much too high. Against this backdrop, today the FOMC raised its policy interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point and anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range for the federal funds rate will be appropriate.
There you go.
In addition,
3/4 of a percentage point. He just announced it. 3/4.
And I'll have more to say about today's monetary policy actions after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators of spending and production have softened. Growth in consumer spending has slowed significantly, in part reflecting lower real disposable income and tighter financial conditions. Activity in the housing sector has weakened, in part reflecting higher mortgage rates. And after a strong increase in the first quarter, business fixed investment also looks to have declined in the second quarter. Despite these developments, the labor market has remained extremely tight, with the unemployment rate near a 50-year low, job vacancies near historical highs, and wage growth elevated. Over the past 3 months, employment rose by an average of 375,000 jobs per month, down from the average pace seen earlier in the year, but still robust. Improvements in labor market conditions have been widespread, including for workers at the lower end of the wage distribution, as well as for African Americans and Hispanics. Labor demand is very strong, while labor supply remains subdued, with the labor force participation rate little changed since January. Overall, the continued strength of the labor market suggests that underlying aggregate demand remains solid. Inflation remains well above our longer-run goal of 2%. Over the 12 months ending in May, total PCE prices rose 6.3%, excluding the volatile food and energy categories. Core PCE prices rose 4.7%. In June, the 12-month change in the Consumer Price Index came in above expectations at 9.1%, and the change in the core CPI was 5.9%. Notwithstanding the recent slowdown in overall economic activity, aggregate demand appears to remain strong. Supply constraints have been larger and longer lasting than anticipated, and price pressures are evident across a broad range of goods and services.
And in case you didn't hear or you're just chiming in, 75 basis points right now is the hit. 75 basis points.
Gasoline and food, creating additional upward pressure on inflation. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by 0.75 of a percentage point, bringing the target range to 2.25% to 2.5%. And we're continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet, which plays an important role in firming the stance of monetary policy. Over coming months, we will be looking for compelling evidence that inflation is moving down, consistent with inflation returning to 2%. We anticipate that ongoing increases in the target range for the federal funds rate will be appropriate. The pace of those increases will continue to depend on the incoming data and evolving outlook for the economy. Today's increase in the target range is the second 75 basis point increase in as many meetings. While another unusually large increase could be appropriate at our next meeting, that is a decision that will depend on the data we get between now and then.
All right, so he's alluding to right now a 75 basis point hit at the next meeting, depending on what the data says. All right. What's interesting about that is he's talking about the data sets coming out. You got the GDP report coming out tomorrow. I believe that's 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if we get a second rough GDP report, that could easily send the recession publicly, right? Fears around the world financially. Right now, looking at the heat map, all right, with JP, looking at the heat map right now, if we look at just the most recent hour, all right, at the most recent hour, the markets are still extremely green here. Ethereum up 4% in the last hour, Bitcoin up 2%, BNB up 3.4%. You got XRP, XLM both up in the last hour here. Let's see. So, anyone got any questions regarding Jerome Powell, the Feds? They came out with a 75 basis point hit right now. Let me know if you have some questions. I'm going to put the sound back on. If you got questions, we'll interrupt him because he's just blabbing right now. And unfortunately, the Fed just has a hammer, and that's all they can use. So if you got a question, ask him in the chat. We'll interrupt JP, and then we'll get to those questions.
But such outcomes are likely necessary to restore price stability and to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking our questions. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. I'm wondering if you can walk us through your thinking around the decision not to go for a full percentage point increase. We saw a ramp up after the May CPI report came in hotter than usual, and then obviously the June figure did too. Was there any discussion of a stronger hike at this meeting? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So we did judge that a 75 basis point increase was the right magnitude in light of the data. And in the context of the ongoing increases in the policy rate that we've been making. I'd say that we wouldn't hesitate to make an even larger move than we did today if the committee were to conclude that were appropriate. That was not the case at this meeting. There was very broad support for the move that we made. You mentioned the June meeting. We had said many times that we were prepared to move more aggressively if inflation continued to disappoint. And that's why we did move to a more aggressive pace at the June meeting, as we said we would do. At this meeting, we continued at that more aggressive pace as inflation has continued to disappoint in the form of the June CPI reading.
Thank you so much for taking our questions. Colby Smith with the Financial Times. As the committee considers the policy path forward, how will it weigh the expected decline in headline inflation, which might come as a result of the drop in commodity prices, against the fact that we are likely to see?
And for those of you that had just joined, Jerome Powell dropping 75 point hit, back-to-back massive moves. So now we are talking $150 basis points. So now I want to bring up an example. I'm going to show it up to you guys on the screen. Don't worry, I got it paused right now. But we're going to bring up the old whiteboard. Where is it? Hold on a second, guys. Let me just get the whiteboard. Oh. All right. There we go. There's my whiteboard. That's what I've been looking for. All right. So, for instance, the Fed, all right? And we're going to bring this into a situation that I think a lot of people can relate to, all right? So, for those of you that are watching that have credit cards, that home loans, stuff like that, home equity line of credit, student loans, stuff like that. This is what the Fed rate hike means to you. Okay, so I got it up on the screen right now. And thank you, everyone, for your support. We got 70 people watching. Again, Jerome Powell, 75 basis point hit. But let's tie this into news that matters to you, how we can digest this. All right, so let's pretend you were buying a $200,000 loan, all right? In the top left up here, that original interest rate was 4%. That, just for the payment, all right, for the principal and interest, was $954 a month. After the last two rate increase hikes by the Fed, we are now at, say, 5.5%. So that same $200,000 house is now, instead of costing you $954 a month, it is costing you $1,135 a month. All right, so now let's put it into bigger picture perspective. So why do people not have the funds for crypto? Why does the crypto market deflate as inflation is going up, as things are going out of control with the Fed increasing rates? Well, it is because of, think about this, all those rates that we talked about earlier, credit card, home equity, line of credit, auto loans, home loans, all that kind of stuff. As that rate goes up, businesses getting loans, everyone. Yes, commercial credit gets affected by this. That's less money that is able to go into the economy and goes directly into banks, directly into interest. That's it. That's all it goes. The banks eat up that interest. So when we look at it right now, when you look at the home, okay, so over that 30-year period of a home, the Fed is now making you pay $65,000 more in interest in a 30-year time period. Think about that. In 30 years, because of what the Fed has done with the last 2 rate hikes, it is now up to $208,000 that you would pay in total interest over 30 years for a $200,000 loan. Holy crap. All right, so if you got questions regarding that, questions regarding JP and the Fed, spit them. Otherwise, we're going to go back to the conference.
See some persistence in core readings in particular. And given that potential tension and signs of any kind of activity weakening here, how has the committee's thinking changed on how far into restrictive territory rates might need to go?
So I guess I'd start by saying we've been saying we would move expeditiously to get to the range of neutral, and I think we've done that now. We're at 225 to 2.5, and that's right in the range of what we think is neutral. So the question is, how are we thinking about the path forward? So one thing that hasn't changed is that it won't change is that our focus is going to continue to be on using our tools to bring demand back into better balance with supply in order to bring inflation back down. That'll continue to be our overarching focus. We also said that we expect ongoing rate hikes will be appropriate and that we'll make decisions meeting by meeting. So what are we going to be looking at? We'll be looking at the incoming data, as I mentioned, and that'll start with economic activity. Are we seeing the slowdown in economic activity that we think we need? And there's some evidence that we are at this time. Of course, we'll be looking at labor market conditions, and we'll be asking whether we see the alignment between supply and demand getting better, getting closer.
Ben R chimes in, still think we're going lower. That is a really good question. Ben, right now, short-term factors, all we got to get through is the poor GDP data right now. That's on the report basis. But the problem is, if we keep at a low level where they're constantly doing 75, 50 basis points, that dries the money up completely. It takes the liquidity out of the market. All right, so let's bring that to a term, and actually let's bring that to kind of a stellar term here. Ha ha ha, that was pretty funny, wasn't it? So let's go on Stellar X. Let's go to automated market makers. Let's look at the liquidity pool here. And this is to answer Ben R's question, saying, are we still going lower? Look at the liquidity. I mean, we're less than half of what we had in November of last year, all right? So there's a huge drain on liquidity. The more you see these rates go lower, you're not going to have like these crazy, nasty implosions, but what liquidity is going to come into market? See, the reason the crypto markets and all that were just booming all the time, it was because of the amount of money that was flowing in. There was a lot of money printed from governments around the world that found its way into crypto, especially on the retail trading side. So now we have to look at the same market. Can it even be propped up without all that government infusion? And we're seeing that it can't. I mean, yeah, okay, 1,500, 22,000. I don't think any of us should be excited with this at all. So I still don't see the bottom here yet. I really don't. And the reason I don't see the bottom here yet is I still think we have a lot of bad money that still has to make its way out of the system. People have said like 99% of crypto is scam schemes and all that kind of stuff. So if that's the case, we got to wipe out 99% of these coins, tokens, and projects out here. And not that I think that it's going to be 99 get wiped out, but we still have to go through a lot of pain. A lot of these companies are just going to go dormant here because the cost to operate is going to be expensive. There's not going to be as many people putting money into these projects. The majority of projects out there, everyone, all right? And for those of you that are just chiming in, saying hi back to you. But for those of you that just chimed in, most of these companies out there, most of these cryptos, when you look at this heat map that's on the screen, all right, all these out here, very, 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 very few of these companies make money, number one. Very, very, very few of those companies then even make a profit. And very, 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 very few of those companies actually make a profit enough to sustain their growth without continuous capital from investors, coin purchases, dumping coins on the market. We got Ben R, Twitch Radio 2 channel members hanging in, chatting. What's up, Twitch? And what's up, Ben? How are you guys both doing? So yeah, I still think we have a bit to go for the bottom. I think that we also still have the ripple effect through other economies. Okay, so we know that what happens in the first world countries, it happens first economically, right? And then it filters down to countries that are dependent upon funding. So a lot of Europe, a lot of Africa are dependent heavily upon funding from United States projects. If the United States cannot give, say, instead of 10 billion, they have to start giving 2 billion now. That's 8 billion less that they're going to be able to give these foreign countries. These foreign countries rely upon that. There's a lot of infrastructure money that's relied upon the United States. So that also means credit for the United States is more expensive. Companies, everything costs just go up crazy. So yeah, we've got a lot of rough costs coming ahead, and it's because no one's fixing any supply chain issues around the world. And if you got questions, let me know in the chat. Going to go on a little bit more here. Listen to JP and the Fed just saying hello from me to you.
Of course, we'll be looking closely at inflation. You mentioned headline and core. Our mandate is for headline. Of course, it's not for core, but we look at core because core is actually a better indicator of headline and of all inflation going forward. So we'll be looking at both, and we'll be looking at them at those both really for what they're saying about the outlook rather than just simply for what they say. But we'll be asking, do we see inflationary pressures declining? Do we see actual readings of inflation coming down? So in light of all that data, the question we'll be asking is whether the stance of policy we have is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation back down to our 2% target. And it's also worth noting that these rate hikes have been large and they've come quickly, and it's likely that their full effect has not been felt by the economy. So there's probably some additional tightening, significant additional tightening in the pipeline. So where are we going with this? I think the committee broadly feels that we need to get policy to at least to a moderately restrictive level. And maybe the best data point for that would be what we wrote down in our SEP at the June meeting. So.
Ooh, Ben's got a good question. If you have a question out there, please feel free to ask it. Ben chimes in. How do you feel about what's happening in Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka will be an indicator for what is going to happen with the rest of the world. Their government is in crazy debt in Sri Lanka. The people have like nothing there. Since tourism got shut down with the Rona, the main source of income for that country now has dried. Poverty, food shortages. I mean, you name it. Yeah, in Twitch, this is a chill zone in here. We're just chilling out today, taking it easy, talking feds. But yeah, so Sri Lanka, there's some really big governmental problems there, and now the IMF is going to have to bail them out, and it's going to be an extremely expensive bailout. And the big issues we have here is that still doesn't help out the people that are there, the people that need. I mean, they don't even have food there. So I think you're going to see more situations like Sri Lanka happen. All right, so to tie this into something that, we hear our grandparents talk about is for those of us in the United States and potentially in Europe too. So for those of us in the United States, typical grandparents talked about, like Vietnam and communism and the spread of communism and how, if Vietnam goes, then it's going to go to this country and this country and this country, right? Stuff like that. And hey, Ryan, totally appreciate that. Totally appreciate that. Yeah, IMF, exactly. The IMF will definitely step in, but it costs them a lot of money. But think the U.S. grandparents out there, they were basically saying, hey, we have to stop this communism thing because it'll spread to all these countries. And then boom, we get into the whole, Vietnam thing, right? Vietnam thing. So now you kind of have to look at it this way too with Sri Lanka in terms of government spending. If the governments keep screwing up out there, people will revolt. And I don't mean that in like a, apocalyptic sense, but there's many different ways. You could vote people out. You could squeeze off government's power. You could do what happened in Sri Lanka. I mean, there's many different ways of pissing people off, pissing off societies. and society's, just having it, up to here. Now, here's a concept for everyone, all right? And I want you guys to think about this, just absorb this a little quick, but take this concept in. And Ryan G, again, thank you very much for the $5 donation. Love the support from the fans. Love the support from the channel members. Thank you very much, Ryan. So a concept that I want to bring to everyone's attention, just we'll digest this one slowly, is what currency or what government has stood the test of time? All right. I mean, just let that question just, just kind of resonate. All right. So, and no worries, Dom, no worries. You made it to the live stream. You're still good. But think about that. What currency, what government has stood the test of time? All right. Think in the U.S., we had a civil war not too long ago. All right. That's still recent history. All right. Europe, you guys used to have your own currencies up until the euro stepped in. And that's just recent, right? That's recent history. All right. What governments out there have stood the test of time? Think of what's happened in Germany. Germany used to have a separate country called West and East Germany. I've been to both of them. Yeah, pretty neat. So my point is none of this stuff, there's change, and none of this stuff stays the same. And so Sri Lanka right now, what you're seeing there, you're going to see more situations like that arise around the world, because when this tourism money gets choked for a lot of these countries, that's their income. That's how they make their money. They don't have governments that can print money for the short term and pass it on to the taxpayer. They don't have economies like that can withstand that. So what ends up happening is these people, they start losing faith in their government. The government starts getting greedy, choking people out, and these countries revolt. I mean, think about that, what they did in France with the aristocrats, right? So what happens is that governments take enough away from people for long enough, the people will eventually break. And I think what you're seeing with Sri Lanka is going to be the start of many more situations like that to come. Right now, I got the heat map up on the screen. Bitcoin coming in right now in the last hour, gaining 4.4%. Ethereum in the last hour up 6.4%. BNB 4.76. XRP looks like 4.4. Those right now are your market leaders in the last hour. We have Jerome Powell saying 75 basis points right now is what we're doing. Moises Osuna says, love your videos, Inside Klaus. Thank you very much. Love it. Like Amsterdam, it all starts with fertilizer. Yeah, Ben, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, right? So Ben's chiming in, and he's saying like Amsterdam. So I remember what they said, though, Ben. The funniest thing was they said there will be no tractors within the city limits of this, or within the city limits of this city. And in less than 24 hours later, they had like surrounded like that huge area, like a transportation area or something like that. I went to the trucker rally a while ago to cover that, and it was very interesting. I actually went into D.C., and I actually was in D.C. when they had the construction trucks starting to block the highways, and I saw saw it firsthand, kind of, what happens here and what governments do fear and stuff like that. I mean, so the Canadian one, you got the Canadian truckers doing that. I mean, the movements like this, this stuff happens, and there's always change. One of the big problems we have in the United States is our arrogance. All right, U.S. people, myself included, there's like an arrogance about us, and the arrogance we have is that things can't change. Everything we have is built on a foundation of stone. It's permanent, right? The problem is that is not true. The problem is with the people in the United States is A, we've forgotten our history, and B, it's been so long for us that we've forgotten that history. All right. Think about it. In our country, when it comes to, voting and rights and stuff like that, equality hasn't been that long, technically. Our financial system from being gold-backed, you know what I mean, to not gold-backed, the gold standard, that didn't happen too long ago. It wasn't too long ago where the government was knocking on your door saying, hey, we need all the gold you can for wartime efforts. So monetary change, government change happens all the time. I mean, all the time. My family is from Germany, and my family lived through the whole, West-East Germany thing. I was lucky enough to get to tour the border. My uncle was a police officer out there, and I was lucky enough to tour the border. And I could tell you, I went from West Germany, which was beautiful, colored, nice, the clay tile roofs, just beautiful, like stucco design, just brown trim, just, real cool Alps looking type vibe, to then you cross the border to just East Germany and it was just gray. So yeah, I mean, governments can take away from people. And I think we're seeing mostly, mostly people getting fed up with stuff. Ben R says people are rising up. I think it's going to spread. I do too. And I think the movement spread in many different ways. Some people are going to voice their upsetness, with their protesting. Some people are going to take to the internet. Some people are going to take to, the protesting on the street, the car convoys. We see a lot of civil rights protests. When I traveled up to DC, I see a lot of civil rights protests happening up there. People are definitely upset. And it's the thing is, it's both sides of the aisle, everyone. This isn't a right or a left issue. This is both sides of the aisle are upset about a bunch of stuff. Because the problem is our politics are very, divisive, and they really they're there to keep societies apart. And it's I don't know, it's just sad to see. So we're gonna go back to JP. If you got questions, hit me up in the chats. I'm checking it, hanging out with you.
I think the median for the end of this year, the median would have been between 3.25 and 3.5, and then people wrote down 50 basis points higher than that for 2023. So that's, even though that's now 6 weeks old, I guess, that's the most recent reading. Of course, we'll update that reading at the September meeting in 8 weeks. So that's how we're thinking about it. As I mentioned, as it relates to September, I said that another unusually large increase could be appropriate, but that's not a decision we're making now. It's one that we'll make based on the data we see. And we're going to be making decisions meeting by meeting. We think it's time to just go to a meeting by meeting basis and not provide the kind of clear guidance that we had provided on the way to neutral.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, you've said that your policy works through influencing expectations, and that policy needs to be at least moderately restrictive, which means you need financial conditions to stay tight. Futures market pricing currently implies you will raise rates this year along the lines of your June SEP, but then lower them a few months later next year. Are these expectations consistent with the need to keep financial conditions tight in order to moderate purchasing power and bring inflation back to 2%?
So I'm going to start by pointing out that it's very hard to say with any confidence in normal times what the economy is going to be doing in 6 or 12 months. And so to try to predict what the appropriate monetary policy response would be, I mean, of course, we do that in the SEP, but nonetheless, you've got to take any estimates of what rates will be next year with a grain of salt, because there's so much uncertainty. These are not normal times. There's significantly more uncertainty now about the path ahead than I think there ordinarily is, and ordinarily it's quite high. So again, the best data, the only data point I have for you really is the June SEP, which I think is just the most recent thing that the committee's done. Since then, inflation has come in higher, economic activity has come in weaker than expected. But at the same time, I would say that's probably the best estimate of where the committee's thinking is still, which is that we would get to a moderately restrictive level by the end of this year, by which
In the next Federal Reserve meeting, I'll have it up on the screen for everyone to see. The next Federal Reserve meeting would be September 20th to the 21st, all right? 20th to 21st. I see the comments, Crypto Ninja. I got you on that. Yeah, so that's next time that you're going to see Jerome Powell. So it's, yeah, is it 50 basis points each month, So one for July, one for September. One for July, one for August, one for September. I mean, how are they going to do it? Are they going to hold to 75? Let's keep listening. Again, if you have any questions, comments, hit them up in the chat. I'm chatting with you and answering questions back.
which I mean somewhere between 3 and 3.5%, and that the committee sees further rate increases in 2023. As I mentioned, we'll update that, of course, at the September meeting, but that's really the best I can do on that.
You said inflation had been a little bit hotter than anticipated. Has your view of the terminal rate changed since June?
So I wouldn't say it was. I think we didn't expect a good reading, but this one was even worse than expected, I would say. I don't talk about my own personal estimate of what the terminal rate would be. I will write down that it's going to evolve. It's obviously, it has evolved over the course, I think for all participants, it has evolved over the course of the year as we learn how persistent inflation is going to be. And by the time of the September meeting, we will have seen 2 more CPI readings and 2 more labor market readings, and significant amount of readings about economic activity and perhaps geopolitical developments. Who knows? It'll be a lot. It's an 8-week intermeeting period, so I think we'll see quite a lot of data, and we'll make our decision at that meeting based on that data.
Gina.
Hi, Jarrell. Thanks for taking our questions. Gina Smiley with New York Times. You kind of alluded to this earlier, but I wonder, in the event that you see several months of very weak headline inflation numbers because oil prices are coming down so much, but core inflation continues to be strong or even picks up, I wonder how you would think about that.
So it's hard to deal with hypotheticals, but
All right, and so real quick here, let's talk about how this affects the crypto market. So put it this way, it costs you now more money to borrow, it costs you more money to make any sort of business thing happen. Imagine you are a crypto company out there, and now capital costs you 1.5% more in order to borrow for you to make your company's operations happen. Think a lot of these companies, all right, a lot of these companies are going to be slowly choked out right now as they just burn through their capital, because it's going to cost them so much more to operate. And you think even any corporate credit that these people own, even small time like startup companies that are just doing this, on their credit cards, it's crazy, right? The amount of money that they're going to spend is insanely higher. For instance, a $200,000 loan at 4% was $43,000 or $143,000 in interest. That same loan now costs you $208,000 in interest. That is a crazy amount of money that cannot go into your projects, that gets eaten up by interest by the banks. So what the Federal Reserve is doing right now, it is making it more expensive to borrow money. And the problem there is these companies that are going to need credit facilities are not going to be able to borrow as much because they won't be able to afford the payment. So because rates are going up, these companies will be able to borrow less. And that's where you're going to see the choke on crypto happen now with a lot of these projects. A lot of these projects that you see on the screen here, a lot of these Ethereum tokens, they're going to go dormant. These teams will run out of funding.
We would look at both, and we'd be asking ourselves, are we confident that inflation is on a path down to 2%? That's really the question. And we'll be making, our policy stance will be set at a level, ultimately, at which we are confident that inflation is going to be moving down to 2%. So it would depend on a lot of things. Of course, as I mentioned, core inflation is a better predictor of inflation going forward. Headline inflation tends to be volatile. So in ordinary times, you look through volatile moves in commodities. The problem with the current situation is that if you have a sustained period of supply shocks, those can actually start to undermine or to work on de-anchoring inflation expectations. The public doesn't distinguish between core and headline inflation in their thinking. So it's something we have to take into consideration in our policymaking, even though our tools don't really work on some aspects of this, which are the supply side issues.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thanks for taking my question, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this week, the president said we are not going to be in a recession. So I have 2 questions off of that. Do you share the president's confidence in not being in a recession? And second, how would or would not a recession change policy? Is it?
And thank you very much, Ben, for supporting the channel. And again, if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. No, I do not have a preference on which one I would buy, But again, thank you, Ben, for the donation to the channel. It's your guys' support there that keeps this going, that keeps this coverage going. So while other crypto channels are getting quiet out there, publishing less, I'm going to keep trying to publish even more, even though I know these are hard times for us to go through on a price and information-wise because it hasn't been good news. I'm going to keep working at it to keep you guys all informed as close to I can as live. So thank you again, Ben R., for making that happen.
A bright line, sir, where contraction of the economy would be a turning point in policy, or is there some amount of contraction of the economy the committee would be willing to abide in its effort to reduce inflation?
So as I mentioned, we think it's necessary to have growth slow down, and growth is going to be slowing down this year for a couple of reasons. One of which is that you're coming off of the very high growth of the reopening year of 2021. You're also seeing tighter monetary policy, and you should see some slowing. We actually think we need a period of growth below potential in order to create some slack so that the supply side can catch up. We also think that there will be, in all likelihood, some softening in labor market conditions. And those are things that we expect and we think that they're probably necessary if we were to have to get inflation, if we were to be able to get inflation back down on a path to 2%, ultimately get there.
The question was whether you see a recession coming and how that might or might not change policy. Thanks.
So we're going to be focused on getting inflation back down, and we, as I've said on other occasions, price stability is really the bedrock of the economy, and nothing works in the economy without price stability.
All right, and getting to that heat map. All right, so we've got the hour heat map up on the screen reacting to JP and the Fed's move here with the 75 basis point hit. Ooh, Twitch Radio's got a good question. Twitch, I'm going to get to that one here real quick. Twitch is asking about the housing bottom. I'm going to get to that here real quick. But first, let's go quick heat zone market reaction right here. Bitcoin 22.7, ETH 15.87, up 4.75, 5.65%. So the market is reacting very positively to the 75 basis point hit. It seems like that negative action was priced in days before, as we have been stating. That is how we have been noticing the cycle over the last couple months. All right, so Twitch has got a good question. When do you think housing will bottom out? All right, everyone, to talk housing, this is a very, very complex issue, but it is something that okay, let's just get into housing, all right? Here we go. All right, so part of the problem why housing is so expensive right now is there is very little supply out there, all right? Very little supply. Part of the reason why there is very little supply out there is because private equity groups are pretty much buying everything out there house-wise, all right? Private equity groups, for those of you who don't know, a bunch of rich people get together and do a big fund of money and they just buy everything, okay? So anyways, private equity groups right now, all right, coming in, they're buying all the inventory out there. So that means they can operate these homes as rentals and operate them at a thinner margin than, say, could you or I. So if you or I bought a house and we wanted to rent it out, maybe we're like, hey, we could make $400 a month on this. We're like, okay, cool, that we can afford that, But now someone else comes in, they can maybe afford to run it and only make $300 a month because they've got 100 other properties, so they're still able to make their massive cash that they need. They could then offer that, at a different rate. They could keep buying it up over and over. So they could price out the market, and they also would control the market on the rent side because private equity is now buying up most of the homes, that means they're controlling the rent. We've had a whole bunch of people out there have home issues where they were behind on loans during the Rona. We had a whole bunch of people that defaulted on car loans, that when the money dried up, they had to give up on stuff. So we had a bunch of people who don't have perfect credit. They have to rent because home loan restrictions have gotten tighter. So now you have more people on a demand side wanting to move into homes. You've got places out there going, well, hey, we know that there's a bunch of money in there. We know that costs are going up. We know that inflation is going up. We have to charge more. So now you have landlords coming in charging more. So in terms of a housing bubble, I think we have to be real careful here and look at a couple different factors of housing. Number one, rent is not going down anytime soon. Landlords are not going to give people a discount here anytime soon. They're going to keep raising rates more and more. So the more that rent goes up, the more that home values stay up, because they're going to be priced very closely to rent when you start coming out payments wise. Because again, these private equity groups are the ones buying these houses out. It is not a lot of retail in there buying homes. It's private equity groups that are paying cash. And so they're buying these properties 70, 80 cents to the dollar, doing the work on it, fixing it up, renting it out, and they're just raising the rates because they're buying everything that's out there in the market. It's crazy right now. So in terms of a housing bubble, guys, the housing bubble is not just, oh, homes are so expensive, it's just going to pop. No, there's so many different levers right now acting on homes and acting on the housing market that no, just because we're raising rates is not going to lower the price of homes. It's going to start getting some of the demand gone on the purchasing side by us, by people. But cash-strong private equity groups are going to be able to stay on the hunt and are going to be buying up more of these homes now, because it's going to be harder for more regular retail people to purchase homes. So no, don't look for a housing bubble anytime soon, because private equity groups are going to control it with cash. All right, so let's see. Mr. Duckman says, do you think the people of the world are implementing crypto into their portfolio? More because in Netherlands, China, and Panama, what the government is doing with banks and protests. I still don't see a lot of people. All right. And again, Max Magato, it depends where your location is at. In the South, right, where I'm at in the South, home rent is going up 20, 30%. Home values are up like 40, 50%. A lot of people's rent in these, got to think, it just depends on where your city and where your state is. The majority of these homes are going up in value. It's nuts. But Mr. Duckman says, you know, what are people going to be doing implementing crypto? I think we're just really having to wait to see until when some of these projects start bringing good real world value. I think that's a big problem that we're all dealing with right now. And thank you, Messi. Messi Leo says, great show, bro. Hi from Sweden. Thank you very much, Messi. Yeah, it's what's happening right now is private equity groups are buying everything up. Businesses, they're buying homes, rental properties, multi-unit. So there's a lot of pressure on housing right now. And if we drain money, the first people that are going to be affected by it, right, by draining money, I'm talking about raising interest rates. The first people that are going to be affected by it are people that are just scraping by, people that could just barely afford a home, a down payment. So those people get wiped off first. That still leaves the cash-strong private equity groups that are going to drive housing market prices through the roof. David Frayne says, when people stop being able to pay, the prices will go down. Just look at Saturday shopping malls, for example. Yeah, exactly. That's Saturday shopping malls. That's because people aren't doing it in the malls. They're going online. I got one for you. You could tell. Here's how you could tell an economy, all right? Two things got to happen if you want to know an economy's bad. First, video game sales. Watch video game sales. I'm telling you, watch. It's the craziest thing out there. Video game sales are like the most resistant thing out there when it comes to any recession. No matter what happens, kids always got that $60 for the next Call of Duty game. That's just how it frickin' is, all right? So what happens is the discretionary income, there's still a lot of that discretionary income out there that's being soaked up. Now, the people that are hurting first are the people that have the least amount of savings, the least amount of assets, the least amount of equity, the people that are most leveraged. Those people get knocked out first, right? All the people that back the Lunas, the Celsius, all that kind of stuff. But then it starts taking and working its way on up. It just takes time. So right now, this move is definitely affecting people on the lower income scale because their credit cards, their auto loans, home equity line of credit, anything like that they are tapping into for equity just got extremely more expensive. Yeah, Twitch, man. Look at video games. You're going to see that is like super recession resilient. That is like the super indicator right there is when video game sales start going down. It's nuts. Dom says, here in Ontario, Canada is crazy expensive for housing. Yeah, housing is just getting worse and worse. In the South, it is nuts. Housing is super expensive out here. David Frayne says, I'm talking about landlord rent. When businesses don't want to pay for the room, the price of the room goes down. Yeah. And David, trust me, I understand that when people can't pay, and that's could be your location, the area where you're at. I can tell you right now, overall, as a demand, the demand is shifting. There are definitely chunks of the country that are very, very hot housing-wise. I can tell you that even what we're seeing in Illinois, we have relatives in Illinois that are looking for a place. They are totally noticing right now that rents are starting to go up in the suburbs surrounding Chicago. Because a lot of people that are moving out of the city, it's starting to drive rent up out in the suburbs as well. So yeah, let's get back to the Fed. Jerome Powell, thank you everyone for your questions. If you got them, definitely comment to them, but let's get back to JP.
We can't have a strong labor market without price stability for an extended period of time. We all want to get back to the kind of labor market we had before the pandemic, where differences between racial and gender differences and that kind of thing were at historic minimums, where participation was high, where inflation was low. We want to get back to that, but that's not happening. That's not going to happen without restoring price stability. So that's something we see as something that we simply must do, and we think that we don't see it as a trade-off with the employment mandate. We see it as a way to facilitate the sustained achievement of the employment mandate in the longer term.
Howard Schneider with Reuters. Particularly in regard to expectations, it's been said the last few months that the risks of doing too little outweighed the risks of doing too much. Does that remain the bias?
So we're trying to do just the right amount, right? We're not trying to have a recession, and we don't think we have to. We think that there's a path for us to be able to bring inflation down while sustaining a strong labor market. As I mentioned, along with, in all likelihood, some softening in labor market conditions. So that's what we're trying to achieve, and we continue to think that there's a path to that. We know that the path has clearly narrowed, really based on events that are outside of our control, and it may narrow further. So, I do think, as I said just now, that restoring price stability is just something that we have to do. There isn't an option to fail to do that, because that is the thing that enables you to have a strong labor market over time. Without restoring price stability, you won't be able to, over the medium and longer term, to actually have a sustained period of very strong labor market conditions. So, of course, we serve both sides of the dual mandate, but we actually see them as well aligned on this.
But as a follow-on to that, given the uncertainty and the sort of paradoxical flow of data you've been getting, if you're going to make a mistake, would you rather make the mistake on doing too much, raising too much, than raising too little?
Yeah, we're trying not to make a mistake. Let me put it this way. We do see that there are two-sided risks. There would be the risk of doing too much and imposing more of a downturn on the economy than was necessary. But the risk of doing too little and leaving the economy with this entrenched inflation, it only raises the cost. If you fail to deal with it in the near term, it only raises the cost of dealing with it later. To the extent people start to see it as just part of their economic lives, they start to factor high inflation into their decisions, when that, on a sustained basis, when that starts to really happen, and we don't think that's happened yet, but when that starts to happen, it just gets that much harder, and the pain will be that much greater. So I really do think that it's important that we address this now and get it done.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Neil Irwin from Axios. To build a little bit on what Steve was asking, do you believe the United States is currently in a recession? Will the GDP reading tomorrow affect that judgment one way or the other? And has your assessment of the risk of recession changed any in recent weeks?
So I do not think the U.S. is currently in a recession. And the reason is there are just too many areas of the economy that are performing too well. And of course I would point to the labor market in particular. As I mentioned, it's true that growth is slowing, and for reasons that we understand. Really, the growth was extraordinarily high last year, 5.5%. We would have expected growth to slow. There's also more slowing going on now. But if you look at the labor market, you've got growth. I think payroll jobs averaging 450,000 per month. That's a remarkably strong level for this state of affairs. The unemployment rate at near a 50-year low at 3.6%. All of the wage measures that we track are running very strong. So this is a very strong labor market, and it's just not consistent with 2.7 million people hired in the first half of the year.
And if you got any questions, feel free to comment them in the chat. I'm just letting you guys listen to JP right now defend a rockin' hiring of people in the economy. He's like, oh, look at all the jobs we gained. Yes, because we shut down the economy. That makes no sense.
Can I get a quick follow on that? Thank you. I'm just wondering if you're okay. Are you concerned at all with kind of falling behind in the global race for digital currency?
All right. So enough of Jerome Powell and the Fed. We know what the story is. All right, so there you have it. 75 basis points is the deal. He is saying, hey, we're going to do whatever the F we have to do to make this work. So hold on, strap it down, because this could be a rough one. As what's going to happen is Fed rates are going to start making it more and more expensive to raise capital. It is going to cost more and more to run a business. And these thin, flimsy cryptos out there are going to be choked quite slowly. That's what's going to be happening. All right. So anyways, some of the things we have to think about is during this last rate hike. So we now have 150 basis points over the last two meetings. 150 basis points when you buy a house that's $200,000 will cost you $65,000 more in interest. Imagine that is a business wanting a loan, right? So for some new tech, for some new internet goodies, right? Now a company wants to take a loan out to get some new gear to keep up with their competitors. It is going to cost them more money. So what's going to happen here is that you are going to see, and don't worry, Party Farm, and for any of you guys that are watching out there that came in late, don't worry, this is going to be in the live stream folder as soon as I am done. So no worries, Party Farm, we got your back. Everyone out there that missed it, I will have this up in the live stream folder as soon as we're done. But think about it, these companies, right, that want to now spend some money, get some more technology, these companies now have to tap into credit because they don't have the cash, right? People aren't throwing money at crypto anymore like they used to. So these companies are going to start drawing down on their reserves, and it is going to cost them more money. The interest is going to drain them. Yeah, and David Frayne, really good comment there. David Frayne chimes in and says, it has just started, folks. We are still using last year's supply for everything. The recession is just starting. Yeah, it's also, we're using a lot of last year's money. People are still digging into the money from last year. This is definitely going to squeeze a lot of people. This is going to last for a while, and this is going to squeeze the economy out a lot of money. What's going to happen is the people that are deep into loans, the people that kind of lived outside their means, they're eventually going to get choked out in this because they're going to run out of cash. So good comment by David. Now, besides the fact that this is going to cost more for businesses to develop, right? It's going to cost more for these crypto companies to develop. This choke off of money also leads to the tech sector, all right? And so with the tech sector, that's another thing that you're going to see less development into. So yes, I see that, Bitcoin, Ethereum are up 5%, but should we be happy with Bitcoin at 22,000, Ethereum at 15, XRP at 35, XLM at under 11? I mean, it doesn't... We've got a ways to go, everyone. That's basically what I'm saying right now. We've got a ways to go. And Jerome Powell said, hey, if we have to, we will do whatever we have to in order to keep things in control. And what can the Fed do? All they can do is affect rates. When effectively, all it does is puts money into the pockets of banks because all you're doing is just paying more on interest. So let's see if you guys got any more questions. Hit them into the chats. We'll go on for a little bit longer here. So if you got a questions, hit them up in the chat. I'm going to get a quick thing of water right quick. Yeah, it was redundant. And yes, definitely hit the like button. And wanted to say a super thank you to channel members out there that support the channel. And also a big thank you to Ryan G and Ben R for their donations for this live stream right here. Bringing a lot of good info for you here regarding the entire crypto market, how the world is moving. David Frayne saying another good one, fertilizers, food, material, just wait. Yes, this takes a while. The ripple effect of shutting down countries and economies, it affects the world in different speeds. So right now, countries that were heavily tourism-based are going to be the first ones. Why? Because tourism was shut down for the longest time. You know, think of countries that shut down their precious metal, right? Remember, we went through wood shortages in the United States. We're doing better with that. But think there was a supply chain from having that shut down for a while, especially because we couldn't get anything across the border from the U.S. and Canada. Wigbusta chiming in. What's up, Wigbusta? How's it going? But we have a lot of events right now that have led to just some really rough times ahead. And I think you're going to see that. You're going to see the luxury car market really start getting heavily impacted here. That's going to be another good indicator to watch. Watch the luxury leasing market too, because, hey, a lot of those big people, that's one of the first things they do. They break their leases early, right? And they dump the loss on their car just so they could have something. They have to get out of the payments. Let's see. Mr. Duckman says, would it be better to get into crypto because the dollar is losing value? Wouldn't you get back more of a percentage with the crypto? It depends on which one is decreasing or increasing at a quicker rate. So, for instance, crypto is mostly down 70, 80%. That's not going to help you when inflation is kicking you at 10, 15, 20%. All right, that's not balanced at all. You would have been better off putting all your money in cash and just paying through stuff as a need basis rather than putting your money in crypto, because you would have lost way more going that route. So, yep, we're going to go just a couple more minutes here, and then I'm going to chill out for the rest of the day. OSW, great show, Klaus. Thank you, OSW. Great fans, by the way. That means you all out there listening. Great fans. 24 hours on the heat map look good. In the last 1 hour, we could see Ethereum up 6%, Bitcoin up 5.6%, BNB 3.6%. You got a lot of people moving on up. Let's see. David Frayne chimes in. Exactly everything, Klaus. Everything. 90% of people still don't know what's coming unless you buy the dip in the rude wave dollar cost average. And tell him utility. Yes. So utility is going to be big, but utility has to come in scale. All right. And the utility makes sense in scale. I don't know if any of you caught the Stellar Development Foundation second quarter in review. It really they have some good stats that you could dive into, and we could start talking about scale and utility and what utility is worth. You know, what are the goods and bads? Do a lot of people use utility? Stuff like that. How does that tie into this? If that's stuff y'all are interested into, let me know. We'll see what we could do either on this live stream or the next one. But yeah, utility. Utility is a very important thing, and a lot of companies fall into the same problems that Stellar and XRP do when it comes to utility and when it comes to usage. So yeah, real interesting thing here. I don't know if any of you guys saw the second quarter in review. Was definitely worth a glance. They only have 409 views right now. I know that's not really too many, but I watched it live. It was pretty good. I'm sure a good number of people watched it live. Let me know in the thoughts below what you think about that quarter two, how it applies to utility. All right, Hunter chimes in with a good one. So when are we expecting the crash to 14,000 for Bitcoin? That was close to my target too, was 14,000 for Bitcoin. We're going to need something big. I mean, okay, so think of the events here recently that has brought it down, right? Luna UST brought things down. The market coming in, being hit with horrible CPI data, and then a 75 basis point knock took it down. 75 basis points didn't do crap to this. So it's going to be when the next big event, is the next big event going to be strong enough? Is it pre-election or post-election, right? If pre-election, if the market starts bottoming and we start moving back, sentiment will get better. But now again, if this happens after the election, that would be a long time for a bottom to drain out. A lot of people are calling for movement in November. I guess for me, a lot of it is going to be based on legislation. Are we going to start seeing some legislation actually happen before this? we've got a lot of bad stuff that's going to be happening in August, right? I mean, we've got a lot of economic indicators that are going to be bad for August. Housing, I know we're going to start worrying about housing right now. We're going to talk about housing supply. Jetpack Joe says, great show, Klaus. Jetpack Joe, great fans. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, we are. We've got quite a bit to go through. I think the thing here is this is all going to come down to how much cash do you have in your pocket. Like if you're a crypto company out there, all right, and just look at the liquidity pools just on Stellar. 13.8 million. That's hardly anything. They used to be over 30, 45, 50 million dollars. So the liquidity pools are shrinking. And some of their biggest projects, their liquidity pools are really, really shrinking. All right, so a lot of liquidity is being pulled out of these projects, and when you don't have the liquidity, you don't have the money for growth because a lot of these companies have to sell their tokens in order to get liquidity to run their operations. And what's up, Trade Trillionaire? How is it going, man? Good to see you here on the show. So yes, we are seeing liquidity being pulled out of these chains, liquidity being pulled out of the overall market, all right? So you are seeing a lot of the market out there react to these rates. It's all about, you got cash right now. That's how I was bringing the idea with housing is these private equity groups have a lot of cash. They have come together. They're having a good cash flow because they're still getting the rents. They're charging more for the rents. So really big stuff here. Ben R chimes in. Thank you, mate. Shower time in bed for me. Chat soon. Yes, thank you, Ben, for hanging out. Thank you also, Ben, for your continuous support of the channel. I heavily appreciate it, sir. Late night pills are for you, man. Late night pills are for you. Yeah, Wigbuster says, stacking money, fighting inflation, making more income for the dips. Yeah, that's all you can do right now, inflation, everyone. Cut costs or make more money. That is all you can do right now to get out of this inflation stuff. So it is right now 3:31. Let's do this. Let's end this in another 5 minutes. These are your last chance to get your questions asked. So I'm going to slam a quick thing of water here, and then I'm going to have I'm going to slam a quick thing of water, and then you guys ask your questions before we start wrapping it up. And yeah, another question for you out there. What are your guys' thoughts on the performance of your favorite coins? Let me know what your favorite coins tokens are, and are you happy with their performance right now? Ben, have a great night, sir. Thank you again very much. Let's see. Jed McCaleb, liquidity for XLM. He didn't bail out for nothing he knew. No, it's not about Jed or anything like that. I think it has to do with we're seeing just a lot of people pull money out of these liquidity pools. A lot of people have just fled the space. They've needed to use the capital for things. A lot of people, this was being over leveraged, and that was funded by people being way too leveraged into this. Just crazy money being thrown all over the place. Twitch Radio is back, and just to let everyone know, we are going to end at 3:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time ending, all right? So if you got your questions, now is the time to get them in, as we have 7 minutes left up on here. And again, let me know your thoughts. We've got, in the last hour here, we've got Ethereum, Bitcoin. The whole market is green. So since the Feds have announced what their rate hike was, and that was 75 basis points, everyone, the market has been very green, reacting to that 75 basis point hike. Now, if we zoom out just a little bit here and we go for the last 24 hours, you will see that it is even, ooh, hey there. Let's get us to the last 24 hours here and refresh the screen. So in the last 24 hours with Bitcoin, with Ethereum in the last 24 hours, wow, up 17%, everyone. Bitcoin up 9%, BNB 10%. Those are some very, very healthy moves here in the last 24 hours. So it appears that the market insiders knew that 75 was priced in and that nothing crazy was going to happen at this meeting. All right, and if you got questions, if you guys have comments, please comment them in the chat. We've got the heat map up on the screen looking at trends here. And if we look more specifically at the hour, yes, getting more green. I am impressed as well. The only problem is we're still down some 80-ish plus percent, which sucks. Yes, I know, totally sucks. Yes, we're talking about Jerome Powell. We're talking about the Feds continuously going to raise rates. We've got Stellar Development Foundation did their second quarter review. Did you watch it? Were you impressed with it? I don't know about you guys. I have some concerns. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, network usage data, total counts and payments. Yes. Good stuff there. We've been talking Fed. We've been talking heat map. We've been talking trends right now. Everyone, let me know. We are going to be shutting this down here in the next 5 minutes. So get your questions in. Now I'm going to grab a quick drink of water. Crypto Ninja chimes in, you're only down if you sell. Crypto Ninja, you might be wrong with that, because if you're a baseball fan and your team is not going to make the playoffs, you are down right now because your team is probably a seller and not a buyer. So yes, right now the Sox are still in it, so I am happy. I'm still doing okay. They have not sold anyone on their team, but I know the town across the way in Chicago, the Cubs have already, I think they were getting ready to trade one of their big pitchers, or they were going to trade one of their big pitchers. So yes, you can have a down day only if you sell, and also if your baseball team is starting to give up. All right, 3:36, everyone. Again, to recap, everyone, if you have not already, all right, you can go and you could check out this video. If you want to see it from the beginning, watching Jerome Powell, you just have to go onto the channel page, go to the live stream folder, and you will see it in the live stream folder. OSW says, what do you think we're going to see with an XRP SEC settlement? I don't know. I still don't know if we could see it this year or not. There's still a part of me that thinks that the SEC is going to want to delay this into 2023 and have it cost XRP more money. The SEC is just fighting everything tooth and nail, and they still have quite a few motions that they could play to drag this out even longer. So I don't even think we're going to see it unless a settlement happens. And if a settlement happens, and that's coming from the powers that are, a lot higher up on the food chain, saying, hey, we need to get this over with. We need to move forward with XRP. Let's see. Max Magato says, I think it's going to go red again and have lower lows in August. Yeah, we could see some rough times in August. I don't see any settlements happening, like I said, early this year, 2022, or for the remainder of this year, 2022. I see it 2023 on the earlier part. And again, anything that happens big economically before the election will help the Democrats. Anything that happens after the election will help the Republicans. And you say, why? Well, it's because if nothing gets done before the elections, the economy is going to be a huge bashing point that they are going to go after the Democrats with, financial policy. But if they start seeing massive relief before the election, that would be a rallying point for the Democrats to say, hey, we are doing what we can. We are on the right path. Just give us more time. So very interesting, the timing of this whole event. All right, we got just a couple minutes here. Let's look at that heat map quick before we shut it down, everyone. And again, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone supporting the channel, the donations, the channel members, the emails, the messages. I greatly appreciate them all. I love doing this kind of stuff. It is a little rough on the throat. I will say that the live streams do kind of roast my throat a little bit. But I love it because I love the interaction with you guys, and I love the fun that we have just kind of sharing stuff. So to finish it up, we've got Bitcoin up big in the last hour, Ethereum rallying as well, XRP, BNB, they're all up green. Twitch Radio, I will catch you later, sir. And you know what? Let's do this. All right, so what I will do is I will shut it down right now. I will leave the chat up so you guys can chat and hang out, say your goodbyes. But I will sign off on the voice. I will hang out with chat for the next couple minutes answering your questions in chat.